City of Sanford City Commission Work Session, Monday, December 14th, 2015, 4 p.m. Railroad Depot Room, 2nd floor, Sanford City Hall, 300 North Park Avenue, Sanford, Florida.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the work session to order. We'll immediately jump into the first item, which is interview of Mr. Russi. Mr. Russi, would you like to come up into the hot seat?
Where's the hot seat?
Stand
at the end of the table?
Yes,
Kneel.
exactly.
Stand?
No. Appreciate you coming in. Everything all right?
Yes, sir.
Good. Very informal. Just take a couple of minutes. I think everybody here knows you, but maybe just a little bit of your background and the reason why you want to be on the pension board.
Well, I'll give you a quick background of me. I'm a Florida guy. I was born in Jacksonville, raised in Miami and South Seminole. Been in business here in Sanford since 1974, which I joined my dad's firm that he started in 1968. Now my brother and I run the business for the last 30 plus years, and went to Lyman High School, Seminole Community College, now Seminole State. Went through an insurance school and did the only other thing I wanted to do outside of sports, and that was be an insurance agent.
When did you figure out sports wasn't going to be it?
When I had a little bone cancer up at UF and I started fighting. Yeah. I now do a boxing club for Seminole County Powell. Been doing that about 12 years.
Greatly appreciate that. A lot of hard work and effort going into it. Any questions for Mr. Russi on his application or in general? I know him well enough that I'm not sure. I think we all know you. Well, we appreciate you coming up, and we'll make the decision shortly, and welcome to the board.
All right.
Oh, we didn't.
Oh. I was real short.
Whoops. I can't speak for everybody else.
You may not need to be there tonight.
No need to show up.
Okay.
All right.
Excuse?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
I mean, unless you really want.
Unless you want to come sit here. All right, that'll bring us to the waterfront catalyst site. I got to step out and grab my glasses real quick.
They're not here yet.
Oh, they're not here yet?
Nobody else.
Both of them? I thought one was.
You give them the option unless you want. But their presenter is not here yet. Their presenter is not here. But I know John's got some pre-comments to make. But everybody's caught in traffic.
Just an intro and a setup, so this might be a good time for them, if it's the mayor's pleasure.
Mr. Mayor, while we could proceed, we are also still missing two members of the City Commission.
So we should.
So we could do some other items on the agenda.
John, do you mind? Because
Not at all.
we're waiting on two more, and
No problem.
I hate that this is such an important issue. If you just hold off for a few. The CRA loan subsidy at 115 West First Street. Just in recap of that, his father has become ill, so he's at the hospital with him. But I did have the opportunity to speak to him. This falls on the heels of obviously us going into secondary position on new requests. Now this is an old one that was done in 2009. I believe there's two of them, 2009 and 2010. They total $60,000 in total. Do you know more about this than me? Oh, okay. What he's requested, he has refinanced his mortgage with a secondary finance company. I do not know exactly who that is as of yet, or I don't remember. I think he said it when Bob and I talked to him earlier today. They have, upon the refinance, they had requested, given him 60 days to be in primary position versus secondary position. I, of course, told him that that wasn't the reasoning behind the change that we had done. Commissioner Williams. And so I'm waiting on some updated paperwork from him. And Bob and I are gonna send something out to his lender telling them that we're looking at it, but he has refinanced his original note. It's total 60,000. He's asked, the lending company has asked for us to be in a secondary position like what we have done with the other ones. So I told him that I would bring it up. He could not be here tonight, but he is on a time schedule with them. And so I said that we would write a letter from here telling them that we would look into it, but it's not something that would happen that quick because an ordinance obviously would have to be done because this is something that was done before.
Yeah, the commission just did the ordinance, so you'd have to amend the ordinance, because the date you put in was December 1, 2014. So this would be prior to that.
Exactly, and it was I mean, it's halfway done, so it was a total to him in the amount of about $120,000. He's down to $60,000. He said that the equity position that he has in the property, it was just appraised at $1,600,000, and he said his first mortgage is approximately $200,000.
This is the Sarasota property?
No, this is Tipstra.
Okay, but the amount he would still owe us at this point if something went wrong is
$60,000. So we would have to go into, have a public hearing, discuss this. He has asked for us to hold a hearing and discuss this, with his taking a secondary position behind his current lender that he just refinanced with. Whereas when he was with Fidelity Investments, we were in the primary position 5 years ago.
So, Mr. Mayor, just for timing, maybe Mr. Colbert, what would be required for the commission to revise the just adopted ordinance?
It would require an amendment to an ordinance or a new ordinance, which requires 2 meetings and an advertised public hearing. So,
So the earliest would be the second meeting of January?
yes.
To have it completed, yeah.
That's the
reading.
earliest.
If the commission wanted to do it.
Yeah,
And how would we redo the ordinance to cover this one?
Change the effective date?
What the commission did, you picked an appropriate date,
Right.
and anything filed subsequent to that date could be considered for secondary position. If you want to amend the ordinance, I guess you could pick another date, but it would apply to any loans of a similar nature.
But still, they would have to be state or federal charter
Yes.
institutions.
And unless you make
Yes, I don't
changes,
know
yes, yes.
I don't know that much. It was a very quick conversation as to who it was. I asked him to send us who the lender was to Bob, and then him and I will take a look at it after this meeting. I mean, it sounded like it would it would be along the guidelines of what we were discussing for all intents and purposes. That with the dollar amounts being so low, and the refinance position, I think the request is okay for us to have a discussion about it, based upon our prior conversations.
But we pretty much have to have the first reading,
We would,
first meeting in January.
right, we need to have the first
You
reading.
could not have it prior to that time.
But
Right.
that's, I mean, to try to get in with this time schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in conversation, I think it would suffice his lender, because he has just recently done the refinance, which, Bill, maybe you and I can sit down at some point in time and discuss that on, as far as the documentation side goes. I have a little bit of concern that there's nothing in there that we don't get a say-so if someone's refining and taking equity out of their position, which could, for all intents and purposes, put us in a worse position. So that's one issue that maybe we can discuss before we bring it back, and then obviously have the reading on the change of financing for this. Okay, so that'll put that on for the next reading. And then Bob, you know, sit down, wherever he is. Oh, okay. All right.
Are we ready for the catalyst? Are they here?
No, they are not.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, the invitation to the development groups noted that their presentation times were 4:45 PM for Reader and Partners and 5:25 for the Tory.
Okay. Well,
They were calling those times for change.
okay, so let's keep moving on the other stuff now.
Okay.
So that brings us to CIP, Mr. Brunswick.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, we had received a request from a commissioner that should the city want to revise its reserve policy, there would be $2 million available. And if we did, how would the city staff prioritize those $2 million? So with that, turn it to Commissioner Woodruff, and then staff could respond to.
Okay. I had questioned as we were going through the budgeting process and doing the tax increase that we had a lot of capital needs and we had a lot of reserves, and why didn't we go ahead and spend some of that and take care of some of these things? And I'm looking at this, if we were to spend $2 million, that would take us right down to 25%.
That is correct. The current policy that the City Commission adopted not that long ago was to have a reserve policy of 25% of the general fund, and then to have an emergency or storm fund of $2.5 million, and then to have a contingency fund of $500,000. We've already utilized, and then Ms. Lindsay can speak to what we have. So at this point, we are below the existing policy of the commission. So what is a possibility of the commission is to revise your policy to simply have 25% of the general fund and to not have the storm fund or the contingency. Were we to do that, then there is $2 million available. So I'll allow Ms. Lindsay to clarify what I may have misstated.
Good. It's correct.
And I would still like to do this. I'm not sure I want to take us right down to 25%. I'd like the policy to be 25%, but I feel like there'd be some money there when things come up. So I wouldn't recommend spending all $2 million and stuff. We've heard from people about some of these things, and I think we need to take care of some of them.
So it's up to the commission. Any questions you have of staff? So again, this is not a staff proposal. It is in response to an inquiry from a commissioner.
Well, it was very recently that we put into place the 2.5 emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Very recently. That was this year or last year?
It was this, I believe, the beginning of this year.
It was the beginning of this year. And at that time, there were some we all, really questioned if there were some valid reasons to do it. So you want to completely eliminate that?
I mean, I feel like the 25% takes care of the emergency. To me, that's what the 25% is.
Yeah.
And I know somebody says, well, we also need that to cover us before the tax revenue comes in.
If we got down...
we used to have, I think, for a long time, it was 16%.
For about 2 years, it was about 16%. We never were totally down to 16%.
We never got to 16%.
We usually were at about 30, but the policy was 16%.
I feel like, part of maybe what we've done, or me subconsciously, and I shouldn't speak for anybody else, me subconsciously, we've been through such tough times. You want to kind of feel like you've got that cushion, and so, maybe Commissioner Woodruff's right. Maybe it's time to start going ahead and using some of it. Cindy, if we did spend down to 25%, what would 25% be right now?
It's about $10 million, just right under $10 million.
What do you think, Mr. Mayor? You're the finance guy.
No, we always said that it was a high position to be at. And you don't save yourself into prosperity, obviously. But I would never be interested in seeing us just go out and spend $2 million. Just because.
But if I'm correct, it's not just because, if you prioritize in your mind the capital improvements you'd like to see done?
Yeah, I don't think we need 850,000 on parks and amenities, but I think, taking care of our basketball courts and tennis courts so that they're usable,
Yeah.
I think that's valid. I'm not sure where we are on playground equipment. We're continuing replacing things, and I don't know what the 645 actually takes care of there, and how much we already have in there for this year. City Hall AC. How old is it?
It's beyond its life.
It's about 25 years, so it's about close to 30 years, and the useful life was about 20 years. So we are way over the useful life.
Did I understand you to say that we don't need the funds to be utilized for recreation?
No, I said, I'm not sure 850,000 to put towards that right now. She asked for priorities. I don't have enough information to say, oh, we've definitely got to put that in right now. I do think we need to take care of the basketball and tennis courts that are in bad shape to the point where they're becoming unplayable.
And the recreation equipment too.
And if they're, obviously dangerous playground equipment we need to take care of. I don't know that we can take care of it all at one time. I think we should move a little faster on replacing it than we're doing.
Well, I'm not sure every park, I drive around in some of the parks, there's playground equipment, but some of them I never.
Right. So I don't know where that number came from. Because that was just,
The 645?
is that take care of everything that we would like to replace, or is
No.
that just how much we can handle in a year?
We usually budget about $380,000 for equipment replacement. We budgeted 0 for this year, mainly because there was a need for the air conditioner for the city hall for public works. So we didn't have the money to put in recreation, and they are even using that $380,000 each year. They've been pulling equipment. They don't have enough money to replace everything that they need to replace.
Okay, so did we already budget something for the air conditioning?
We budgeted $575 just for the chillers. This would replace the whole unit. This is money addition for $775.
I'm in reading this list earlier, I was thinking, I see, other than City Hall AC replacement and the IT core switch, police records, public works equipment, I keep hearing about all the buildings that are falling into disrepair. This one needs a new roof, this one needs, and I don't see anything on there as far as repairing, or upgrades to.
We tried to prioritize what we thought was the most important at this point and the most needed, but there is a long list of needs, yes.
So playground equipment is more important than buildings that need new roofs?
I think that's because of the residents and
I think during the summer when we first started talking about this, it was, and we want people to see it. We want it to be things that the residents will be directly affected. Which is why there was
$645,000.
Well, that's not it, because you got another $303,000 for parks and ground, playground, and
restrooms.
You got $1 million.
I don't want to sound stupid, but I'm a non-parent. As a non-parent, maybe this isn't a stupid question. Swing sets, seesaws, slides.
It's very important.
No, I know it's important, but how do you spend that much money on it?
It's expensive.
These aren't the ones you go and buy at Walmart.
Well, and it's not the old
Stand the test of
3 and 4 inch tubing anymore either. They're these elaborate fort structures.
What do you think, Mr. Bonaparte? It's your budget.
I think that the city is right to have a good reserve policy. And the city commission earlier this year adopted a reserve policy of 25% plus the 2.5 storm fund plus the 500,000 contingency fund. While that's a policy issue, I think it's a prudent policy issue. As Ms. Lindsay said, in the past, we were up to 30%. The policy was 16%, but we had 30% or so in reserve. So the city commission, as a matter of fact, when you adopted the new policy, directed staff to take the excess of that to then put aside, because we had money in addition to the 25%, the 2.5%, and the 500,000. So that was put aside for capital funds. So I think it's a prudent policy. It's certainly a policy decision, but I think that looking long-term, the city is good to be in a good position. Balancing, however, the fact that we do have real capital needs. On your agenda today is some equipment for Fort Millen Park, which is a highly used park. But that is on today's agenda.
And that was budgeted.
Yes.
That was part of our budget.
Yes.
Should we be thinking a little bit out of the box about playgrounds? For instance, we have some major playgrounds and then some, like Commissioner Jones said, that are rarely used. So we know Fort Millen Park, we know Coastline Park is getting $1 million rehab. We know Derby Park is not getting $1 million rehab.
Not the park itself. Not to my knowledge.
Commissioner, you're thinking of Coastline.
Oh,
That's what I said was
That's what you said.
Coastline.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Coastline's not getting,
It's almost $1 million in construction, but it's not just the playground.
it's not, but is the playground itself being updated?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got
Not at
dirt,
the tune of $1 million. That needs to be.
but $1 million is being spent on it for things total. A lot of money's been spent at Derby lately. We got Fort Millen. Maybe, I mean, do we need playground equipment at every single park? Couldn't our parks be almost different type of uses? Couldn't we have our premier playground parks, in our districts, and then maybe have some that don't have playground equipment that maybe would be more attractive to adults or dog walkers or stuff like that? Do we need playground equipment as much as we've got on here?
That's a policy issue. I think, though, if you have playground equipment at a neighborhood park and you take it out, the residents will expect it to go back in.
And they should expect that. They live in that particular community. They expect the.
But nobody's
Unless you-
understanding my point, which is we have so many parks that we have some communities that have just multitudes of parks. I guess my point was, if we have, several parks in close proximity in a community, couldn't we actually do better by, instead of piecing it out, having a premier playground park in that community and a premier, garden park or something like that?
There's a logicalness to your comment, and it makes sense from a professional perspective. The concern I would have from being in other cities is that neighbors normally think of their park as their park.
Yeah.
And if it's not maintained to a high standard, even if they don't use it, they get concerned.
And of course, at the homeless just so y'all know about our parks, at the homeless task force meeting, what was a lot of the conversation? Lee P. Moore Park is just a fabulous homeless park. So whatever we're putting over there right now is not really being used because we've got so many homeless people living in that one.
And oftentimes when the city puts in a gazebo for the residents, it turns out to be
Oh, Centennial
attractive.
Park, thank you.
So.
Well, I think that I'm okay with 25%. I've said that in the past, as long as that money is spent for CIP with a true breakdown of what it's going to be and how it's going to come. And I think Commissioner Wood have said it right. We don't know. I don't have enough information to say, okay, $850,000 sounds good. And I also agree with the basketball and tennis courts. I know that they're in need of upgrades. The parks that are used the most, I think, need to be dealt with. Not so much the squeaky wheel. It's probably not the right comment, but the ones that are getting the most usage, maybe we go in there and start a program of trying to, a couple $100,000 each year going towards that. But I'm not, as you say, we've been very prudent over the last couple of years, restraining, on a lot of purchases that we could have gone out on, and although I think, everything's reading that things are going better, and they look like they are, we still have a presidential election next year. We haven't had a hurricane in a lot of years. And we just raised taxes.
And we've got that big drainage issue coming up sometime soon in the industrial park, which I understand is going to be quite expensive.
Well, Mr. Mayor and members of the commission, this was put together, and I apologize, because what you have before you is just numbers, not the breakdown of what those numbers would be, except basketball. So a good understanding of the playground equipment, 645, there's no breakdown of what that may be. So what we can do is look at presenting to you at one of the January meetings, more of a breakdown. I did hear, and please correct me, comments in terms of basketball courts and tennis courts. That seemed to be something that the commission thought, at least members that spoke, thought that we should move forward with.
I would say those get used heavier than many of the parks with just playground equipment.
I like how the police got $2,000 too out of it.
I know, that's pitiful, isn't it?
$2 million, $2,000. What was that, 0.1%? 0.01%? Pretty good. That's not bad. It's good negotiating, Chief. Thank you.
What is a core switch?
It is a piece of equipment that helps run the city's network, and it's outdated and getting very old. So it's a very important.
Chief, are you putting a boat in the boat parade this coming Saturday? The lighted boat parade?
It's in service.
Oh, is it? That didn't make it on the list.
Just for your information for reserves, in all the conferences I go to, cities are building the reserves. They're not taking them down. This is the time usually that cities start building. They get prepared for emergencies. They do pension reserves for pension issues. They do rate stabilization reserves. They build them. They're not spending them right now. They're building them to get prepared in case we do have other issues coming down the road with the economy or anything, pension issues, that kind of thing. So,
And Ms. Lindsay shared with me that 25% is on the low side.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at our other cities,
Yeah.
our budget's absolutely bigger, so the percentage is a little skewed. But I mean, I like that comment that you're building the reserves for specific arenas, because we are going to have discussions.
Beat up by some of those groups for not spending.
Yeah, but we're going to have some discussions on pension. I mean, where the pension funds are down this year. I know we're looking at insurance, which I believe is up this year again. Versus what we budget, there's some things in here that we're going to have to take care of. Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, what I'm hearing, and please correct me if there's a consensus, and it's a corporate consent, if there's any actual action that the commission needs to vote on, $55,000 for basketball courts, $150,000 for tennis courts, and I think Ms. Lindsay would put in the $60,000 for the IT course, which is something about computers that we like to work when they work and not when they don't work.
Understood.
Is there any formal
Why
action?
wasn't that put in the regular budget then, if it's that?
Priorities. There was a lot of stuff not put in the budget that
The addition.
yeah.
The top of the list that didn't make the top of the list.
To answer your question, I think the official action would be the adoption of a resolution. It could go on like a consent agenda for the next meeting, but that would be the action that would fund this.
and then we can bring back to the commission a breakdown of the 645 and then explaining the other items. Again, the air conditioner, that's to add to money that has been already budgeted, that would complete it. The money, there's not fully the amount that we need to replace the air conditioner. The money for the chiller is, but not the complete. And playground equipment, the public works equipment, the 363, we don't have any breakdown of that. We can provide that. And then the commission also has more time to think about what your comfort level is in terms of the reserve.
I would just like to say the playground equipment, park amenities, and also the parks and playground equipment and restrooms are very important for the quality of life of our citizens.
Yes.
I think those areas are very important in terms of quality of life as it relates to our citizens.
And staff agrees with you. What we're saying is we'll bring to you a breakdown of that 645, and then you may say yes to 300 of it, or you may decide to yourselves what you're comfortable with. We can defend all of it, but the balance is what can we think that we should be spending right now versus balancing the need to have reserve, adequate reserve.
Now, I'd like to know what has been spent in those areas for the last 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify and make sure I understood what I think I heard. For playground equipment replacement, we typically have been spending about $300,000, and this year we budgeted nothing.
Correct. Except we do have specific playgrounds that we have done, but in general, for just equipment failure and stuff, we usually budget about 380, actually.
Okay. And there's not a budget for that?
Correct.
So this year, if playground equipment breaks, it just comes out?
Unless we can find it somewhere else.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we can present for the first meeting in January, the proper budget amendment
For the ones that they've already decided.
Right.
I'm just going to ask, are there questions or concerns about the money for air conditioning repair and replacement?
Mm-hmm.
We as a commission have questions about that? Air conditioning replacement. We have to have the air conditioning, we're trying to figure out, okay, if we don't do this, then what?
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, if you could explain where we are with the...
It'd be like it's a budget meeting.
Yeah.
Wait till next meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, we can be very lucky and the AC could be working for the next few years, or it can break down. And if it breaks down, which it might, because it's over its life and it's in very poor condition, then we will be out of an AC. So.
And when Mr. Peacock says we're out of AC, he means City Hall closes. 'Cause
Well,
we
you'd have to.
can't
They can't
operate.
open the window. Yeah, you'd have to evacuate the building in the summertime.
Or the wintertime.
It'd be well,
there's not...
it's Florida, Norton. During the summer, I could see people having heat strokes. During the winter, it couldn't get any,
You can't get lower than 65.
it's not going to get lower than 65, yeah. No, really.
Yeah, it's in poor condition. I mean, you can have a tour of that. It's just fallen apart. It's rusted and it's fallen apart.
Yeah.
But didn't I hear we've budgeted to replace the chiller part?
500.
Okay.
And what's this?
So the air handlers and
This
all the
would
inside
be
stuff
this
was
would be
the other
everything,
part.
the air handlers and everything else that goes along with the chillers.
So there's enough in the budget this year already to replace the big units outside.
It's everything else that'll be upwards of 800,000.
Last time it was done when the building was done. That's about it. It has never been replaced.
Why shouldn't that be a priority?
It is. It's on here.
But I thought you didn't tell, I don't think anybody said anything about considering it.
I think I'm saying move it up to the resolution list in January.
No, I took it as the chiller is the part that's in really, really bad shape.
Yes,
The inside pieces are.
somewhat better than the chiller. And Public Works been putting it on the CIP list every year for the last 10 years. It's been on the CIP list.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah, we
what's wrong
eventually
with-
fixed the elevator.
What's wrong with pushing it up for January?
We could. And that way everything will get done. Well, again, with the chillers, you get, but the other, maybe you can explain what the 300 is for in terms of the inside.
It's for the air handlers, the ducts and everything else. Chillers are just producing the cool air. It has to still be in the building, upstairs and downstairs, and that's what the air handlers do. So I think
Yeah.
it would be best, once we get one company to replace the chillers, the same company does the air handlers as well.
Which affects the air circulation.
Air circulation.
Yeah.
Because right now we have, like this morning, we had one part of the building warmer than the other part.
Are they gonna do all the ductwork too? Or is that just for the units themselves?
I think that's for the units.
Okay, how, in the essence of time, and we've got a lot of people here, I mean, bring it back to us in January, and I mean, it's gonna be a part of, I'm not really not interested in throwing a blanket $150,000 at tennis courts. That's just kind of who I am, or a blanket $55,000 for basketball courts. You know,
Based on your values.
So bring a resolution with the exact
I mean,
figures on those
let's-
things, and we'll
let's take a look at it.
take
I
out
mean,
the
it's-
pieces we don't want.
X court needs X amount of dollars of work. And X,
I mean,
Yeah.
that's how
This
it
one
should
needs
be.
that.
Right, so what I'm hearing is to bring back, rather than the resolution, to bring back more detail on all of it, and then the commission
That's
can
what I think
decide.
I'm hearing.
No,
Yeah.
I was saying bring back the detail in the resolution, and we can modify the resolution and get it done. But I guess, 2
Well,
more
it-
weeks doesn't make a big difference.
Isn't the resolution reducing the reserves to 25?
It would reduce by however much you approve.
Right, so we could have a resolution setting the reserves, but we could have a list
Well-
of additional top priorities that we can use from those reserves if we so see fit.
Okay. Right now, you're below your policy.
Right. The 2.5 and the 500.
Correct.
We're talking about putting a blanket to 25%.
Right, I'm just saying, you don't have to, you don't have to, you need to, if you want to, you can change the policy. But we're already below the policy, so you can have the policy as is and the budget amendment. The cleanest way is to adjust the policy, and what I have not heard of this complete discussion is what you think the policy should be. If you think it should be just flat 25% and nothing for storms and nothing for contingency, or do you still want to have consideration of some policy that has 25% general fund, a amount for storms, and a amount for contingencies?
I think what I'm hearing is that so far.
And chairs.
Art's chairs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe.
Chair. What I'm hearing from Art specifically is that you would reduce the main reserves because he wants to be at the 25% mark. So however you get to that point is
So you're talking about moving everything over 25% into the CIP fund, and then doing a budget amendment to say what you want to allocate that to
If
and how
any.
much.
I'm saying set it at 25%, and it's okay to have more than 25%. And the amount we decide to spend from this list, move to the CIP fund.
You want to eliminate the emergency storm, the 2.5 emergency fund, correct?
I guess the policy that dictates that
Yeah.
that number has to stay there. I mean, it'd make more sense to me to say, raise the policy to 27% or 28% rather than having these
Well,
3 buckets.
again, we had the policy of 16%, and we were like 30, at one point, we were almost 40%. And then the commission discussed, well, if we have a policy of 16, why are we at 40? So let's then discuss having a policy that shows of 25%, but then the different pots. I mean, the commission then came up with having a pot for storms and a pot for contingency. So if you want to go away from that, fine. That was the thinking, as opposed to just having a one pot.
And the one thing I want to remind everybody, the one thing that has surprised me ever since I became a city commissioner is how many times during the year something comes up that we don't expect. And someone, usually the mayor will say, where's it going to come from? And someone, usually Norton, will say, out of the reserves. So,
Is
you
that
know.
how we really talk?
Yeah, so.
And that's why I don't want to bring the
Christmas
reserves down to
moose.
spot.
Remember that?
So.
Well, I don't know, Wilbur.
Well, my point being, maybe if we're gonna do away with the policy that requires the emergency fund, then maybe we want to set our reserves at 28 rather than 25. I just think that if and it would be too much of Cindy's time, but if she were to go back and look at all of the all the things over the past couple of years that have come up, where's it gonna come from? Well, we've got to, or the other thing, the mayor will say, have we got that in the reserves? Jordan will say, yes, Mr. Mayor. So, so it's, you know, we have a lot of unanticipateds and unexpecteds, and we go to that reserve, and
You
Which is why
actually,
you don't want to take the reserve all the way down to policy.
yeah, you actually spent 800,000 on the reserves for 2015.
there you go. 2013,
2015.
2015,
Last fiscal year.
that's almost $1 million.
And that's when it was budgeted at 500,000.
Right. So it's nice to have $1 million of undesignated reserve.
I also think that it's important to have an emergency contingency type fund. How much? I'm not saying, but I just think we should consider that.
Well, and I realize the time we wanted to move forward. The reserve, as Ms. Lindsay was saying, is just for cash flow. We don't get the property tax monies in time to always pay all the bills. So we need to have some monies in the reserve so that we continue to operate. Right, what I'm hearing is come back in January with a resolution looking at spending money, and at that time, the city commission can pick and choose. Is that consistent?
Just give
Okay.
it some time for us to really peruse it
Okay.
and really verify the assessment.
I think the number that we've got in there now, both dollar and percentage versus where we're gonna go. I know this says we have basically have 2 million in there right now if we reduced it to 25%, right? And spent all the money now. And just so everybody realizes that in case of that emergency, if you reduce, I mean, we spend $2 million on this stuff and one thing happens, we are now sitting back at this table having a discussion for 30 minutes about reducing our reserve policy. Understanding, but putting that in your hat too, as we discussed.
That's right, Mr. Moose.
We'll come back. Okay.
Okay.
I believe the catalyst site. Yes. If the commission wants to move to that now.
Christmas Moose's name.
John?
Good afternoon, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the Commission. Just wanted to give you a little 5-minute setup of the presenters that are coming in here tonight with regards to the Waterfront Catalyst site. A little history and background first. In 2003, City purchased the old post office site. In 2003, the City also acquired a half a block on the other side, fronting First Street, bounded by Palmetto and Sanford. During the next 9 years, the City issued several RFPs for hotel and mixed-use developments with no responses submitted. In 2012, the City consolidated the remainder of the half-city block that bounded First Street, Palmetto, Sanford Avenue, and Commercial. That city block is now being used as a parking lot for the City, for visitors and employees of the downtown area and shoppers. In 2014, during the summer, the City hosted a community design workshop. The output of that workshop is the Waterfront Catalyst Site Conceptual Master Plan and Alternate Master Plan that demonstrates the development potential of the Waterfront Catalyst Site. Through 2014 and 2015, the City of Sanford, the CRA, and Seminole County updated the CRA's Community Redevelopment Plan, identifying the Catalyst Site as a redevelopment objective and identifying specific capital improvements to enable the site's development. Also during that year, 2014-2015, the City of Sanford updated its Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code to enable the development of the Catalyst Site as per the vision of the Conceptual Master Plan. 2015, the City purchased the remainder of the post office block at the old dock, paper, scissors, and dry cleaner area. 2015 and summer, Little John initiated outreach to developers to solicit interest regarding the Waterfront Catalyst Site. Later in 2015, the City issued an RFQ for development partners. In 2015, also, the City demolished the old buildings and cleared the site. And hopefully in 2015 December, we will select a development partner. That's the bullet points of the history starting in 2003, the Waterfront Catalyst Site. With regards to developer outreach, Little John met with over 19 development groups, with 19 development groups to gauge their interest and understand their perceptions of the city of Sanford and the development opportunities it presents. Representatives of Little John met with different development groups and also hosted 3 familiarization tours with development groups that came and toured the city. The city developed an RFQ and issued that RFQ in August of 2015. The RFQ requested developers' qualifications and experience with the type of development and the development area context, that is waterfront development areas and historic areas. The intent was to identify a potential development firm that would be the most qualified to partner with the city to develop the Catalyst site. The city did not ask for development proposals in order to better focus on the experience and capabilities of the firm submitting rather than the proposed development scenarios. The intent was to identify a development partner that the city could trust and feel confident with. Once a development partner was selected, the city and the developer would work together to develop a master development plan for the site. The city appointed a selection committee comprised of Public Works Director Tom George, Economic Development Director Bob Turk, and CRA Chairman Mr. Charles Davis. City Manager oversaw the selection committee deliberations. Little John staff was available to provide additional information and insight during the deliberations of the selection committee. The selection committee evaluated the 3 submittals and ranked the respondents. There was a clear stratification of the submittals and firm experience as interpreted by the selection committee. The selection committee was unanimous in its rankings and identified the following. Torrey Development Group was selected as the #1 recommended group with 295 points out of a possible 300. Reader and Partners was selected as the #2 group with 239 out of 300, and Mosaic Development was selected or identified as #3 with 229 out of 300. The selection committee presented these findings to the City Commission in November with the recommendation to select Torrey Development as the city's first choice as development partner, with Reader and Partners as second, and with Mosaic as third. Tonight, the Sanford City Commission is here to listen to the top 2 ranked firms that have submitted to be considered for becoming the City of Sanford's development partner for the city's own parcels. Tonight, the Sanford City Commission will evaluate the qualifications of the respondents and determine if they are best suited to partner with the city and develop the waterfront Catalyst site. There are several next steps in the process. Those next steps in the process, once a development partner is selected, is sitting down and crafting a memorandum of understanding between the city and the development partner. There may be some performance items identified within that MOU. Subsequent to the MOU terms being developed and satisfied, the city would then, if it chooses to do so, establish a development agreement with the development partner. After the development agreement is created, crafted, and agreed upon, the city would adopt that development agreement and then begin the implementation of the infrastructure and improvements and site preparations needed to develop the waterfront Catalyst site. So this process could take an additional 10 to 16 months from where we are right now. So we started this process in 2003. It's 2015. It could take up through 2016 before we start turning dirt. So I wanted to give you just a little background as to where we are. You've seen the selection committee's recommendations. You've had an opportunity to review the submittals in detail. So tonight, the Sanford City Commission will evaluate the qualifications of the respondents, and you will also have an opportunity to directly ask them questions with regards to any information or answers that you would like to see from them. So I just wanted to cue it up with that. If you have any questions regarding the process, feel free to ask me right now. Otherwise, we'll just get the respondents in here and get the show on the road.
The other component is that we are hopeful that the commission feels comfortable making a decision tonight, then directing staff to move forward with a particular developer.
Thank you, Mr. Booker.
John?
Mm-hmm.
John?
Yes, sir.
Can you introduce?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The first group tonight is going to be Reader and Partners LLC out of Orlando, Florida. One of their represented projects is the Baldwin Park project. They will probably talk more about those projects at hand. So with that being said, this is the Reader and Partners group.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon. I sincerely apologize for my tardiness.
Oh.
I will stay for detention afterwards. Tried to get here on time and just the traffic didn't allow, but anyway, I first and foremost would like to thank you for selecting us to present in front of you today. I think this is a tremendously exciting opportunity. I can say that being a native Central Floridian and living in the area for the past 10 or so years, I've spent time in and around Sanford. I think the initiatives that you all have taken to really create a nice downtown will be accentuated by this project. So just to give a quick background on Reader & Partners, we're a 4.5-year-old company. We're based out of Orlando, Florida, with an office in Raleigh. We are a southeast-based master plan community developer. To put that into layman's terms, we are what you'd call a residential developer with a focus on larger master plan communities. That's been our business by nature. We, like I said, are interested in this piece of property because we first and foremost think that it's just a good opportunity. It's also something right in our backyard that we know about and have personal connections to. Reader & Partners has about 80 or so years of experience. I have about 10 myself in the real estate world. We are a group that we focus in the Southeast. We have projects in North Carolina, South Carolina. We have 2 that we're working to get into active development here in Florida. We consult on a national basis. What I think Reader & Partners first and foremost does that sets us apart from other developers is that we focus on placemaking. And not to look past commercial strip centers and 300-unit apartment complexes, but we like to make deals that we feel like are special. Obviously, they have to be things that financially pencil and make things work, but we're all about creating interesting projects that lead us to the next interesting project. A quick range of services of what we provide. We are what we would call horizontal developers. We generally do not participate in vertical development of deals. So we're folks that come in, we begin ultimately on the land acquisition side of deals typically. We do detailed underwriting. We'll do market studies, provide all these type of services that ultimately allow us to exit the business through the sale of land to third-party groups, whether that's a home builder, office developers, or just folks that are developing for mixed uses. So the first thing, capture market opportunities for each project. We come in and we take a 30,000-foot view of a deal. We like to think of it as we come in, we know the land, we can get up to speed pretty quickly on what we think a market opportunity is, but part of that is understanding, this may be a use that we think would be, is geared for office. Maybe we think it's better for retail or residential. We have done that through years of experience. Some of the folks in our firm have worked on projects that have varying uses, and what we do typically has different uses. So capturing market opportunities, will come in, we'll learn what's the general type of development that has occurred in the area, what do we think the seed opportunity is, and how do we best capture that. Incorporate best practices of planning and design. Some of that is through what we've known and what we've done. I'll get you guys up to speed on the projects that we've worked on in the past that we're currently working on. We align ourselves with what we think are the best consultants in the business. Planners, architects, engineers, the people that are really able to take a good deal and make it a great deal. We're also a member of the Urban Land Institute, which is known as ULI. It's basically a global organization of real estate folks, and basically it's all about best practices. It's a think tank of how to take something from Oklahoma or Japan or wherever else and bring it back home, and to think through what those ideas are that kind of stimulate us to what would be great in this particular environment. Develop detailed financial models and budgets. When we start any project, we have to anchor our projects into a firm financial reality. We understand that on a project like this, there may be a little bit more dollars that have to go in initially, but any deal that we do, we want to be successful. I've worked in the business for 10 years. I've never given a project back to the bank. Perry's been in here for the better part of 3 decades and never done that. We focus on doing deals based on as much equity, not putting a ton of debt into projects, and that way we don't get upside down. So having a good financial model helps us through that process. Provide day-to-day guidance and strategic management of land assets. We work on projects that generally are larger, everywhere from 80 acres all the way up to about 1,000 acres. So that requires us to look at how the project's being assessed based on taxes, what current entitlements are, really the best things that we can do on a day-to-day basis until those assets go and develop. Oversee the planning, permitting, implementation of infrastructure. That's somewhat self-explanatory. We like to think that we immerse ourselves in what those processes are in order to help us get through that quicker. When you do any type of real estate project, we always feel like time is of the essence and we're under the clock. And the time that you go out, determine what the market is, determine what the opportunity is, and when you actually go develop it, it needs to be not necessarily a quick turnaround, but expeditious. Time is wasting and money's wasting as you aren't able to get those processes moving along. Market and complete the sales of sites, parcels, projects to third-party buyers. Like I mentioned earlier, we typically exit on the vertical side of the business. Prior to Reader and Partners, Perry and a few of our associates have worked on the vertical side of the business. We network. We're a member of the Homeowners Association locally. We maintain good relationships with national and local home builders to understand what the value of the deal is and also who may be interested in a project that we go design. The basics of that are, specifically back to capturing market opportunities. We're not going to go design a 20-acre hotel site that can fit 400 rooms if the average hotel site's 2.5 acres and 120 rooms. Those are things that we like to know, and you start to learn that by every day, or at least on a regular basis, talking to the folks that are going to come and that are ultimately going to be the customers of your business. Create opportunities for vertical investments with potential third-party partners. Specifically on a deal like this, there may be an earlier exit to home builders. It may require through the process that the city participates ultimately in the vertical development of what the catalyst site may be. We would look to represent Sanford in the best way possible to be able to produce positive returns for a deal like this. Continually seek value-add opportunities and cost savings. That's touches on basically hiring good consultants. Ultimately good consultants will cost a little bit more money. What we generally found over time is it saves you money. Looking at cheaper alternatives to develop, not necessarily of less quality, but things where you don't have to necessarily over-engineer projects. So the structure that we've contemplated for this deal is Reader and Partners will be the development manager, and we've identified 2 folks that we think would be ideal for what the potential opportunity could be. We haven't made any hard commitments, but we think that these groups would be tremendous to bring into the city's fold. So I'll touch on who these groups are later, but basically, just to show you this slide, is we would be the overseeing party of these groups, and then we would bring in various consultants on an as-needed basis throughout the process.